Right, so hey everyone and welcome back to another budget photography video. Unfortunately in this location today there is building works going on behind me. Now let's face it, lenses are not cheap, especially if you want something really good. You have to pay an incredible premium. Now in the last few years EF mount lenses especially have gone down in price, hence the fact as to why on my Canon R6 I'm using an EF 17 to 40, 44 millimeter, doesn't matter. I'm using an EF mount on RF lens with a converter. Now, I'm not really one to use third-party lenses. It's not because I'm not interested in them or because I don't like them, I'm just, meh. I'm sure some of them are really good. There are obviously some bad ones. But today on my 16 Mark II, I have something very interesting, and it's this. The Tamron, something just landed in my hair, the Tamron 70 to 300 f4 to 5.6 macro zoom lens. Interesting. Now, I picked this up at a computer exchange here in the UK for around £60. So I'm not expecting a lot. Well, I wasn't expecting a lot, but you know what? It's decent. Image quality on the lens isn't too bad. It's okay. It's not a particularly fast lens. Autofocus on it is okay. It has the autofocusing is quite, there it is, quite loud. As you can quite clearly hear. So, and it's quite slow, the autofocus itself, but the actual utilization of it is okay. As I say that, it was just acting up just then. Now, as I said, it's not a particularly fast lens, and when I say that, I mean more of an FPS. So if you're going to be using something like this, I wouldn't really recommend using it on a fast camera, such as something like this. The reason I say that is you're probably going to get more out of focus shots than in focus shots, unless you lock the autofocus, because it is really slow at autofocusing. It has an autofocusing motor, and this is kind of my biggest gripe with it, is just how bad the autofocus is. I mean, it's £60, but it was never really that expensive to begin with. Now, I'm not fully sure at the moment, at the time of recording this video, what the original recommended retail price was. I'll put that up on screen if I can find it now. But apart from the autofocusing, what are some of this lens's bad sides? Because I want to cover the bad sides first before I get to the good sides, because this lens has a lot of good sides, a lot of good things about it. And one of the major pluses about this lens actually is its cheap price. But its other big letdown, it has chromatic aberration, quite severe chromatic aberration. And yeah, you can sort it out in post, but for me, at least, I like to keep my pictures as natural as possible, unless I absolutely have to edit them. I don't mind editing pictures, but I want to get it as right as possible in camera. And having good glass means, well, good photos. Having really bad glass means having really bad photos. Now, the thing is, there's not a lot bad to really say about this lens, because you're weighing it up against its price. That's how I do the reviews. I weigh it up against the price of the product. So I paid 60 odd quid for this here in the UK. So you're kind of getting what you pay for, really. You know, you pay £60 for a lens. You pay £60 for a lens, you get £60 worth of quality. So you kind of get what you pay for. But I have to admit, apart from a few little quirks, I really kind of like this lens. It's not heavy, it's really quite lightweight, which is kind of worrying, but it means less to carry. It's an f4 to an f5.6, which means not much out of focus, but then again, at 300mm, you're going to get compression anyway, so that's not really an issue. Sorry, someone just walked past. So it doesn't really matter about the aperture unless you're, going in extreme low light. Yes, the autofocus is really bad. Pictures are just okay. That's the thing. They're okay. They're not massively bad. Yes, the finished result is you get chromatic aberration, but I find it really hard to hate this lens, because this lens is clearly aiming at an audience of beginners. It's not aimed at someone like me. It's aimed at someone who, I don't know, maybe wants to start photography and maybe start wildlife photography, and they don't have a lot of money, and that's good. We need more lenses like this to an extent, because everyone that wants to be able to get into photography should be able to get into photography if they want to. Especially wildlife photography. I've been enjoying it recently, to be fair. And the thing is as well, this is a full frame lens, meaning you can put this on a crop body and you've got even more reach than what you would have on a full frame. So what is there really to lose? It's £60. Yes, the autofocus is bad. Yes, it's decent. That's the thing that I'm struggling to get behind. It's decent. It's not amazing, even for the price. It really isn't. And some of the things that make it quirky, as I said earlier, is the zoom ring, for example. Rather than going, hang on, I'm going to use the focusing motor. So rather than going that way, it zooms that way. Normally on Canon lenses, you have to zoom it from right to left. This is going left to right kind of thing, which is a bit weird. There's a feature on this lens that I'm really trying to avoid talking about, but I have to. And that is its macro mode. God. It has a macro mode. I feel like this lens is trying to be not the be all and end all of zooms, but the be all and end all of budget zooms, because you've got 70, which is decently wide-ish, and then you've got 300mm, which is quite telephoto, and then you've got macro mode. Macro mode. Why does it need macro mode? Now, macro mode is actually, frankly, quite terrible, because it has a few things about it, right? And let me show you, right? So we've got the normal, let's, can you guys see that? Can you see the camera, or should I? Let's expose that properly. I'll bring it back. So we've got the normal switch for AF just here, look. Autofocus, manual focus. Let's take it off the camera. So here we have the normal switch. Autofocus, manual focus, whichever one you want, right? Here, look at that, look. We have the macro switch. So at the moment it's in normal, but to get it into macro, you can't just switch it down. No, no, no. Tamron don't want you to do that. So what you have to do is zoom it in, and if you notice, 180 to 300 mil, there's a little line. That is the macro point, and now I can switch it into macro mode, but it then locks it into 180, sorry, to 300 millimeters. I can't, and then this here is the macro. Again, you'll see it with a kind of a goldeny brown line, the macro focusing points. Image quality in macro mode is okay. It is. It's exactly the same as what you would expect from everything else that this lens does, every other picture. It's just kind of moving the focal distance. That's about it. It's just being able to shoot closer. But my biggest problem is turning into macro mode and out of macro mode. Because now that, even though I am in the focal distance and in normal mode and in manual focus, I can't switch it out. It will not do it. And I don't know what the rules are for this. Ah, there we go. Okay, I can't be in that focusing bit. I have to move it to there. Huh? So it's just kind of, oh, you can't unlock it if you're in the focusing distance. But you also have to be within 300 to 180 millimeters. So there's just a lot to think about. But if you are using this lens as kind of just a, wait, have I? No, I have. Oh, thank God. Oh, I thought I wasn't recording. Oh, thank fuck. But if you are just using this lens to get into the telephoto space, and you're on a crop censored camera, like a, I don't know, a 500D, 700D, 600D, stuff like that, this is extremely good, especially if you're just beginning. That is where this lens is. The same as this, the Canon version of this. They are for professionals, poor lenses. They just are. But for someone, excuse me, but for someone just starting out and either doesn't want to spend a lot of money or doesn't have a lot of money, that is who this lens is aimed for, and especially for £60. And to be frank, apart from the macro mode, I really do like this lens. It's fun, the different zoom. Why is it going the different way? Now, I don't really use, oh, that's why I was sat here, sorry. I was sat here wondering why it wasn't autofocusing, and that's because I hadn't switched the autofocus on. But it's kind of fun in a weird way, and I quite like it. It gives you a decent amount of reach for a cheap price, and that is exactly what you're looking for. And if that is exactly what you're looking for, then great. Go out, spend the £60 and buy it. Anyway guys, thanks for joining me in this video. I'll see you in the next one.